The television series and the novels that they're based on may have diverged greatly in the past, but one thing is going to link them all. Well, I guess I should actually say three things, because there are three shocking twists that are set to take place throughout the entirety of the television series, and there are said to be three similar moments in the books. So far, over 7 seasons, we've actually already been privy to 2 of them. The first one is going to be the actual burning of Shireen. Now, we know it's not going to go down the way it did in the novels as it did on the television series, but it's going to be something similar. The second shocking twist was the one that made all of us cry, and that was the reveal of how Hodor got his true name and his ultimate demise. According to the showrunners Dan and Dave, that third shocking twist is going to happen in the end. Naturally, that's got us all speculating on what that twist is going to be and when will it happen in Game of Thrones Season 8. In this video, I'm going to discuss several different outcomes of what that third shocking final twist may be, as well as some leaks that relate to the images that were most recently released earlier this week. Here's your sign and let's begin. Before we get started, please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 1,420. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and then, this is the most important part, make sure you have your notifications turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Now let's jump right into what the third and final shocking twist may be. Now, Dan and Dave told EW, and this was an interview from I think at this point almost 3 or 4 years ago, but they told EW that a few years back at that point, they had sat down with George R. Martin, and he roughly sketched out a plan on how the show is going to end. They had commented during that interview on the fact that a lot of people think the show is going to spoil the books, and they mentioned how that's not exactly the case. From that point forward, which was the beginning of season 6, or I guess about midway through season 6, they mentioned how the show was going to be greatly diverged from the books. A lot of the events going on in the end game are not going to be similar to what happens in the novels. And when it gets to the point in the interview where they mention the third and final twist, they mentioned that it's going to be saved for the end. Now, initially, Dan and Dave wanted there to be 7 seasons. So last season of Game of Thrones would have been complete, and that would have been the final season. So this 8th season is really season 7 part B, in that we're really getting continued events that should have been concluded last season. What I'm getting at here is that that third final twist may have already likely been revealed in the form of Jon Snow's true parentage. Now, we did find out 100% confirmed that Jon Snow is not only a bastard, but he's also the legitimate son of Rhaegar and Lyanna through marriage, and you're probably thinking, dude, they already confirmed that at the end of season 6. Well, the show doesn't have the books to be based on, so certain storylines they have to stretch out. One of those storylines may very well be the third and final twist, and that being revealing the true lineage of Jon Snow. And technically, that hasn't been fully revealed yet. The only people who know about it are Sam and Bran. So the final part of that third shocking twist may be Jon Snow finding out about his lineage and deciding that he wants to pursue the Iron Throne. Now, the last part of that is not really believable, because that's not necessarily in Jon Snow's nature. He very reluctantly took the seat of the power in the North. My goal in saying all that was just to present to you guys the idea that the third and final shocking twist may have already been set in motion. Now, there is a small subsection of fans who tend to apparently be the loudest in comment sections that think the third and final twist is going to be the reveal that Bran is either a puppet of the Night King or the actual Night King himself. Without getting into too specific of theory there, they think that Bran is responsible for everything, including the building of the wall. Now, I have entertained that very idea before in past videos, but for the most part, I think that that's a reveal that would have to be spelled out over the last few novels if something like that were to take place. There's just not enough time to present all that information and make it easily digestible so that the average show watcher would know exactly what the hell is going on. What may actually go down in season 8 and not necessarily be considered the third and final twist, and maybe it's something that really only happens on the TV show, is the fact that Bran has to die in order for the Night King to be killed. Like, the two of them can't exist one without the other. So if the Night King gets destroyed, maybe Bran has to be destroyed as well. I think something like that is more likely to go down in season 8. My own personal favorite speculation or theory, if you want to call it that, about what the third and final shocking twist will be in Game of Thrones Season 8, and I've sort of been hinting at that in my last few videos, it's that Cersei will survive everyone and end up sitting the throne, the Iron Throne, when it's all said and done. Now, like I was talking about earlier about the third and final twist may be Jon Snow's lineage, now I don't know if that'll be a twist, because it's spelled out pretty clear in the TV show as well as in the books that Jon Snow's parents are Rhaegar and Lyanna. But since this is my video, we can have super fun, throw your tinfoil caps here, and let's just say that Jon Snow's lineage and Cersei sitting the Iron Throne is all part of that third and final twist. If you look at the evidence, one of the major supporting evidence will be a leak that I'm going to discuss here in a second, but when you look at the other evidence, the confirmed pictures of Jon Snow meeting with Cersei, as well as one of the most popular and accepted leaks that Tyrion will have a trial that will result in his death at the end of Game of Thrones Season 8, then it all sort of kind of makes sense. Jon Snow and Daenerys have the biggest army the Seven Kingdoms have ever seen. Daenerys has 2 dragons and can inspire more than enough inspiration to put herself or Jon Snow on the Iron Throne in the end. And let's face it, if the two of them are super successful in killing the Night King, which we know they will, we know we're going to lose some characters, and we know Jon and Daenerys are likely going to lose a lot of people and a lot of dragons, or animals rather, close to them, they would still be able to muster enough effort to go down and remove Cersei from the Iron Throne. What makes this show famous is leading you into thinking something is 100% certain and then completely subverting your expectations. And let's face it, we all expect Jon Snow and Daenerys to be extremely successful against the Night King. They will then turn south, go and rid the realm of Cersei, sit the Iron Throne, have lots of children, and live happily ever after. Even though we know it's not going to be exactly like that, it's pretty much a well-accepted fact that the two of them will survive in the end, and either Daenerys will have no dragon and children, or she will have 1 dragon and no children. But if we take a step back from what's expected and what we all think we deserve as the audience to get to see in the end, then the clues have been laid out going all the way back to the very beginning of the series. George has been telling us since day one that he most admires J.R.R. Tolkien's work, and the ending of A Song of Ice and Fire will likely reflect the ending of Lord of the Rings. So if we look at the way the movies ended, well then that doesn't really give us much insight. I think what George was more referring to was the actual Lord of the Rings novels. Now it's a bit more complicated than Aragorn getting the girl after becoming king, and Frodo and all the rest of the little hobbits living happily ever after. After the destruction of the ring, there's actually what's known as the Scouring of the Shire. The hobbits return to the Shire and find out it's under the leadership of some human dude who is admittedly a bit of a douche, and Sam decides that they need to have a rebellion, and Frodo decides that he's going to sit out this rebellion because he's so tired and so changed from the journey they just went on. He doesn't want to partake in the events that will rid the Shire of Sharky, who's this human that's actually Saruman. It all comes to a head when the hobbits attempt to kill Saruman, but Frodo stops them after almost being stabbed by him. Then out of nowhere, Grima, who is actually Saruman's right-hand man, turns on him and then kills him right in front of Bag End, which is the home of Frodo. Now what we can take away from all that is that even though Frodo had that journey in destroying the Ring of Power and destroying, let's say for Game of Thrones, the Night King, he did not want to partake in the very last stretch of the journey. I feel like we could argue about who's who in A Song of Ice and Fire and Lord of the Rings, but for this video, we're going to say Daenerys is that much like Frodo, for the main reason being is that Frodo was the bearer of the Ring of Power, and Daenerys is the bearer of the dragons, who are total power in a Game of Thrones. So what we can take away from that is that after Jon Snow and Daenerys successfully defeat Sauron, or the Night King, once they get back, taking care of Cersei is sort of the returning to the Shire, realizing that even though they just destroyed the Night King and lost almost every single person they loved and cared about, they still have to finish freeing the Seven Kingdoms. So this could mean that if Daenerys is like Frodo, maybe she could sit out the whole capturing of King's Landing, getting Cersei to surrender or bend the knee, and this would make Jon like Sam in the sense that he's got to go take care of Cersei or Saruman. And you know what? The more that I think about it and the more I sort of hear that out loud, I kind of think that the end of The Lord of the Rings more so will reflect the end of A Song of Ice and Fire, not necessarily the TV show adaptation. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the leaks. Now this person actually sent me this information through the DMs over on Twitter. Speaking of which, make sure you go follow me at Sir_Hunts. This person states that in the end, Daenerys is killed by the Night King. Drogon goes berserk afterwards and nearly destroys all of King's Landing. After a break in the final battle, Bran meets with Jon and explains to him what they must do. He tells Jon that Drogon is the only weapon they have to destroy the Night King for good. He also tells Jon that the only person who has mounted Drogon successfully is Daenerys. Jon then replies with Daenerys is dead, but Bran interrupts him, stating that she can be brought back in a way. The scene then cuts to black and the camera pans over Daenerys' corpse. Just then, her eyes awaken and it's revealed that Bran has warged into Daenerys. What the fuck? Okay, continuing on here. It is revealed that Bran wargs into Daenerys. He uses her body to mount Drogon, saying Dracarys one last time, and destroying the army of the dead for good. Bran is lost to the Warg afterwards, but the Night King is ultimately defeated. Now just pausing right there for a second, I know that sounds ridiculous, and remember I told you to keep your tinfoil caps on whenever you watch my videos, but however ridiculous this may be, it's definitely original. Now I really only covered the leak for this next last part, which in my opinion has a lot more credibility than anything ever sent to me. They go on to state that after the death of both Daenerys and Bran, Jon decides that he wants to lose no more, and that the best way to take care of their Cersei issue is to come up with an agreement that they can both live by. Neither of them have the forces to wage battle against each other, and Jon does not want to lose any more people close to him. Now, this person goes on to state that the pictures confirm this next part. Jon Snow will bend the knee to Cersei. In this meeting, pictured right here, Jon mentions how in order for him to bend the knee to Cersei, the North will remain as its own kingdom. Jon will not be the king of the North, but also the North will not be involved with any games of the South. And I'm just going to stop right there in regards to that leak. Now, the first part of it was completely unbelievable, but the part of Jon Snow bending the knee in order to save the people that he loves, well, that's extremely believable, and in my opinion, that's the third final and shocking twist. Although I think it's going to be more along the lines of Jon Snow and Daenerys both survive. Daenerys may play the role of Frodo like I mentioned earlier in this video, and maybe since she's pregnant, she decides to sit out this initial meeting between Jon Snow and Cersei. Maybe the two of them come up with an agreement that the North won't interfere with the South and the South won't interfere with the North. Maybe there's some sort of interaction where they decide to split up the Seven Kingdoms, those who are loyal to Jon Snow and House Targaryen and Daenerys, and then those who are loyal to the Iron Throne and the Crown. There was a leak that I was sent a while back that mentioned the fact that Tyrion's trial does go down, and it's all on Cersei. Cersei demands Tyrion be put on trial for his crimes against the Seven Kingdoms and mainly for killing their father, but I'm not really sure how credible that is. And if we just take a step back for a second here, I'm not suggesting 100% that the third shocking and final twist is that of Cersei sitting the Iron Throne in the end. In my opinion, that's probably not going to happen, and what's most likely going to happen is that Cersei's going to die an excruciating death in the very end. We just all have to keep our minds open to the possibility that Cersei may survive in the end, because this is something that the show made very famous, subverting tropes and making the good guys come out on top. And I'm not saying I want the show to end with Cersei sitting on the Iron Throne, but that would be a hell of a twist, and I'm pretty sure it would piss off a lot of people. Before we get out of here, you guys let me know down below if you think the third and final twist has already been set in motion and it's going to be concluded in Jon Snow finding out his lineage and then what he decides to do after that, or if you think the third and final twist is something entirely different and it could be something more along the lines of Cersei sitting the Iron Throne. Alright, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 1,420. Make sure you're subscribed, and then make sure you have your notifications turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. A super special shout out to every single person watching this video, and a special thank you to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunts Reviews.